It is a misconception that wealth comes from doing something big, from picking the right stock, starting the right business, inheriting the right money, or catching the right break. Because people are watching for the big move, the dramatic decision, the lucky moment that will change their financial life. And they are watching in the wrong direction, because wealth does not come from a big move. Wealth comes from 1,000 small ones done quietly every single day for decades. And the people who actually have money, not the people who look like they have money, but the people who actually have it, share a set of habits that are almost embarrassingly quiet. None of these habits would make a good news story. None of them would sell a book. None of them feel like the answer when somebody first hears them. They are too small, too slow, too unimpressive. But here is the truth. The quiet habits are doing the work while other people are looking for the big move. The quietly wealthy are running these habits day after day, year after year, decade after decade. And the compounding of those habits is what produces the bank account that everybody else is trying to figure out. And today I want to walk you through 10 of them. 10 quiet habits that, if you install them in your life and run them for 10 or 20 years, will produce a financial outcome you would not have believed was available to you. Not by doing anything heroic, just by doing the small things every single day the way the quietly wealthy have been doing them all along. And most of these are going to sound too simple to matter, and that feeling is the trap, because the simplicity is exactly why they work. And before we get into the list, you have to understand why the quiet habits beat the loud ones. Because most people, when they think about money, are looking for the loud answer, the home run, the deal of a lifetime, the thing that if it works out will change everything. And here is the truth. The loud answers almost never work. The home run usually does not connect. The deal of a lifetime turns out to be the deal of somebody else's lifetime and not yours. The big bet more often than not loses. And the person who staked their financial future on the big bet ends up worse off than the person who never made any bets at all. Because the math of the loud move is brutal. The upside has to be enormous to compensate for how often it fails. And almost nobody actually gets the enormous upside. Most people get the failure. And the quiet habits do not depend on any single move working. They depend on small actions repeated over time. Paying yourself 10% of every paycheck, waiting 2 days before any large purchase, tracking every dollar that comes in and goes out. None of these are exciting. None of them will make you rich next month, but they will with mathematical certainty change your financial position over years. And the reason they work is that they are not dependent on you being lucky. They are dependent on you being consistent. And consistency is something you can choose while luck is something you wait for. The quietly wealthy understand this in their bones while everybody else is still waiting for their break. And you must accept the math before you can use it. Because the math says small inputs multiplied by time produce large outputs. And the only thing the math requires from you is that the inputs keep happening. They do not have to be impressive. They do not have to be dramatic. They just have to be there every single day, every single payday, every single year for a long time. And if you can do that, the math handles the rest. You do not have to be clever. You do not have to be lucky. You do not have to outsmart anybody. You just have to keep running the quiet habits while everybody around you is still hunting for the loud answer they never find. And so today, 10 habits, run them for 20 years. Watch what happens. And the first one is that you must pay yourself first. Before you pay your bills, before you spend on anything else, before you do anything with the paycheck that just landed, a percentage of it, and 10% is a good starting point, goes into a savings or investment account that you do not touch. And this sounds simple, almost too simple to be the most important wealth habit. But it is. It is the foundation that every other habit on this list builds on. Because if you do not pay yourself first, every other dollar in your life is already promised to somebody else. The landlord, the bills, the food, the wants, the small daily indulgences, and whatever is left at the end of the month, which is almost always nothing, is what you save, except you did not save because there was not any left. And here is the truth. The order matters more than the amount. 10% paid before anything else is more powerful than 50% saved from what is left. Because what is left is always zero. The quietly wealthy understand that the first dollar of any income is theirs to keep, and the last dollar belongs to whoever asks for it loudest. And this habit also rewires how you think about money. Because when you pay yourself first, you start to feel like the money you earn is actually yours. And when you pay everybody else first, you start to feel like a conduit where money comes in and money goes out, and you never see any of it. And the first version produces an owner while the second produces someone who never gets ahead. And the fix is mechanical. You set up an automatic transfer the day the paycheck arrives. 10% of every paycheck moves before you can touch it into a separate account you forget exists. You do not check it. You do not borrow from it. You just let the deposits accumulate. And after 1 year, you have 10% of your annual income sitting in an account that did not exist before. After 5 years, you have half a year of income. After 10 years, you have a year of income. After 20 years, with even modest investment growth, you have something approaching financial independence. All from one habit, automated, quiet, boring, running in the background of every paycheck you ever receive. And most people will never install this habit because it feels too small to start. But you must install it anyway. Because the quiet wealth that follows is exactly the size of the consistency you bring to it. And the second habit is to keep a running record of every dollar that comes in and goes out. Not in your head, but on paper or in a simple file. Updated weekly, looked at monthly, reviewed honestly in cold light when there is nobody else around. Because most people do not actually know where their money goes. They know roughly. They have a sense. But if you sat them down and asked them to tell you to the dollar what they spent on food last month, or on entertainment, or on subscriptions and small monthly charges, they could not tell you. They are guessing. And guessing is what keeps them from building wealth, because the dollars you cannot account for are the dollars that quietly leave. The small charges that come out every month and never get noticed. The eating out that adds up to $400 but feels like 60. The small impulses that over a year amount to thousands you never decided to spend. And the truth is that the act of writing down every dollar, not for a month, not for a year, but forever, changes your relationship with money in a way nothing else does. Because you cannot keep doing wasteful things if you are watching yourself do them in writing on a record you can read back. And the watching by itself is what changes the behavior. You do not need willpower. You do not need restrictions. You do not need a budget you will never follow. You just need to see every week exactly where your money went. And the seeing produces the adjustment automatically without you having to fight yourself. And the quietly wealthy track not because they are obsessive, but because they understand that what you do not measure you cannot manage, and what you cannot manage manages you. So they put a small effort every week into knowing exactly where their dollars are going, and the small effort returns a lifetime of clarity. And the way you do this is unimportant. A notebook, a spreadsheet, an old envelope with handwritten totals. The medium does not matter, the habit does. And once a week you sit down and write down what you earned, write down what you spent, write down where it went, look at the numbers honestly, and do that for the rest of your life. Because by year 5 you will have a financial life you actually understand. And by year 10, you will have made 1,000 small course corrections that produced a financial position the untracking version of you would never have reached. And the third habit is to live below your visible means. Because this is the habit that separates people who appear wealthy from people who actually are wealthy. And the two groups in real life almost never overlap. Because the person whose lifestyle screams money is statistically drowning in payments, while the person whose lifestyle says nothing is the one with the actual bank account. And every increase in income produces a fork in the road where you can either spend the new income and feel richer for a month, or you can keep your living costs steady and put the difference into savings, investments, and freedom. And the fork looks small in the moment, but over a career it produces enormous divergences. Because the person who got a raise and immediately rented a bigger apartment, leased a nicer car, and ate at more expensive restaurants. That person after 20 years of doing that with every raise has a bigger apartment, a nicer car, more restaurant meals, and the same anxiety about money they had at the start. While the person who got the same raise and kept their lifestyle steady has, after 20 years, accumulated a meaningful sum of money. And they look the same to outside observers. You cannot tell which is which. But one of them is wealthy, and the other is one bad month away from disaster. And the truth is that the visible means is a trap, because most people aim their spending at what they think their income allows, while the quietly wealthy aim their spending at what they actually need, and let the gap between need and income become their freedom over time. And you do not have to live in poverty. You just have to live without trying to signal your income. And the fourth habit is that you must wait before you buy. Not for everything. The small daily things are fine to handle in real time. But for any purchase above a certain threshold, you wait 48 hours, 72 hours for larger items, a week for anything significant, and the waiting is the entire habit. Because you see the thing you want, you consider buying it. You do not buy it, you go home, you sleep on it. You come back to the decision the next day with the impulse cooled down and decide whether you still want it. And here is the truth. A large percentage of the things you want in the moment you stop wanting 48 hours later. Because the desire was generated by the moment, by the marketing, by the situation, by a mood that has passed by the time you have had a chance to sit with the decision. And the purchase made in the cooler version of your mind never happens. And that is money saved quietly without restriction, without a budget, just by waiting. And the waiting does the work that no budget could do because budgets feel like restrictions and people fight them, while the waiting does not feel like restriction. It feels like being thoughtful. And the impulse purchases are the leak in most people's financial life. Not the big planned expenses, but the small to medium impulse buy that accumulated runs into thousands per year. And the waiting habit closes the leak without any willpower, without any sacrifice you can feel. And by the time you have been doing this for a few years, your relationship with desire is different. You can sit with wanting something without immediately acting on it. The wanting becomes information and not a command. And information you can think about is information you can choose what to do with. And the fifth habit is to drop the practice of spending money to impress people who fundamentally do not care about you. Because this is the biggest financial leak in modern life, and almost nobody admits to themselves they are doing it. And a huge percentage of what most people buy is not for them. It is for the version of them that exists in other people's minds. The car is to be seen driving the car. The clothes are to be seen wearing the clothes. The vacation is to be talked about. The dinner is to be mentioned. The house is to impress the people who visit it. And you must understand the asymmetry here. Because the people you are trying to impress are not actually paying as much attention as you think. They are too busy worrying about how their own life looks to spend much time evaluating yours. And the whole spectacle is happening in your head, paid for in dollars that could have been doing real work in your actual life. And the handful of people in your life who do actually pay attention to you, your family, your closest friends, the people who genuinely care about you, those people do not need to be impressed because they care about you regardless. So the money is being spent on a performance that has no spectators, and you must catch yourself when this is happening. Because when you are deciding whether to buy something, you should ask the honest question of whether you would want this if no one would ever see you with it. And if the answer is no, you are about to spend money on the performance and not the thing. And the sixth habit is that you must negotiate every recurring expense in your life once a year, every subscription, every insurance policy, every monthly bill, every contract, every service. And once a year you sit down, list them all, and either renegotiate them or cancel them. And this habit takes one afternoon, maybe two once a year. And it produces savings that over a decade run into tens of thousands of dollars for nothing more than the willingness to make a few phone calls and ask a few uncomfortable questions, because most companies count on you not asking. And the price you pay for your insurance, your phone, your internet, your subscriptions, almost none of it is the lowest price available to you. It is the price you have been paying because you have not called, and the call is short. You ask for a better rate. You mention that you are considering switching. You ask what they can do, and half the time they offer you something, and the other half you have the information you need to actually switch. And the quietly wealthy are not paying less because they are special customers. They are paying less because they ask every year without embarrassment, because they understand the price on the bill is a starting point and not a final number. And the subscriptions are the same story, because most people have a layer of small monthly charges they signed up for 2 years ago and never canceled. And once a year you must list every subscription you are paying. Ask honestly whether you actually use each one. And the ones you do not use you cancel that day in one sitting. And doing that every year for 20 years produces enormous cumulative savings, not from one big move but from dozens of small deliberate adjustments made consistently every 12 months, while everybody else just keeps paying whatever the bills say. And the seventh habit is that you must invest steadily every single month regardless of how you feel about the market, the economy, the world, or your job. Because the investing is the habit, the amount can be small. And the consistency is the entire game, because most people invest based on their emotions. When the market is up and they are feeling optimistic, they pour money in. And when the market is down and they are feeling scared, they pull money out or they wait to start until things settle down. And the truth is that the emotion-driven investor is the worst investor in the room. They buy high. They sell low. They miss the recoveries by sitting on the sidelines waiting to feel better. And their emotions cost them most of the returns they would have otherwise earned, while the quietly wealthy invest like clockwork, every month, same day, same amount, same accounts, regardless of whether the market just dropped 20% or just hit an all-time high. And over 20 or 30 years, that mechanical, emotionless habit outperforms almost everything else you could have done with the same money, because the markets over long periods of time go up. And the person who was investing during the down years bought a lot of shares at low prices. And the simplest way to outperform almost every active investor in the world is to take a small amount of money every month, put it into a broad index fund, and never look at the account except once a year to make sure the deposits are still happening. And that is the entire strategy. It works because it removes emotion from the equation. And removing emotion is what lets the math do its work. And the eighth habit is to build real relationships with people who are doing better than you financially. And this is the habit most people resist the hardest, because it feels uncomfortable to be the least wealthy person in the room. But the discomfort is the cost of admission, and the price is worth paying, because your financial reality is largely shaped by what you believe is normal. And what you believe is normal is largely shaped by who you spend your time with. And if you spend all your time with people in roughly the same financial position as you, that position will feel like the ceiling. But if you spend even some of your time with people who are operating at a higher financial level, your sense of what is normal expands. Things you would never have considered start to feel possible. Approaches you would never have learned start to become visible. Conversations you would never have had start to happen. And your trajectory bends slowly in the direction of the new normal. And the quietly wealthy commit deliberately to expanding their circle over time, not to use people, not to network them, but to genuinely build relationships with people who are operating at a higher level and learn from them naturally by being in their company. And what happens over years is that the way they think about money starts to change. They start seeing options they had never considered, investments, career moves, income structures, and none of their new connections are preaching at them. They are just talking about their lives, and in those lives things are possible that they had not realized were possible, and the entire mental field they are operating in shifts, and that shift is worth more than any single piece of advice anyone could have given them. And the ninth habit is to learn one new income-relevant skill every year, not for fun, not for general enrichment, but specifically a skill that, if added to what you already do, makes you more valuable in the market. Because most people stop learning the day they leave school. They become a fixed skill set. They get good at their job, and then they coast on that skill for the next 30 years, hoping their raises will keep pace with inflation. And the worker who has not added a new skill in 15 years is the worker who, when the economy shifts, is the first to be cut and the slowest to be rehired. while the quietly wealthy never stop learning income-relevant skills. They are deliberate about it. Every year they pick one skill, something that complements what they already do, and they spend the year getting better at it. And by the end of the year, they can do something that 12 months earlier they could not. And the person who has 2 complementary skills is worth more than the sum of the parts. The person who has 3 is worth significantly more than that. And by the time you have 4 or 5 complementary skills, all sharpened through deliberate annual practice, you are operating in a category that has very few other people in it. And the market pays for that kind of rarity not in linear increments but in multiples. And the skill you pick each year does not have to be huge. It can be software your industry uses that you have been avoiding. It can be a communication skill you have been weak on. It can be writing or speaking or analysis or negotiation. And you pick one, work on it for the year, spread the effort across 12 months, read about it, practice it, find somebody who does it well and learn from them. And by the end of the year, the skill is yours. And then you pick the next one and you do this forever. And the 10th and final habit is that you must protect your reputation like it is the largest asset you will ever own. Because it is. Your reputation is the only piece of wealth that takes a lifetime to build and a single bad decision to destroy. And the quietly wealthy are usually not the most charismatic person in the room. They are not the loudest. They are not the most exciting. But they are almost always the most reliable. They do what they say they will do. They pay what they owe. They show up when they say they will show up. They tell the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable. They do not gossip. They do not betray confidences. They do not take shortcuts that compromise their word. And the cumulative effect of those quiet behaviors over decades is that they become the person other people want to do business with, the person other people want to refer, the person other people trust with opportunities, money, partnerships, and leadership. And the opportunities that produce real wealth almost never come from cold outreach or generic applications. They come from referrals, from the phone call that says, I know somebody who is good at this and who will do what they say they will do. And your reputation is what gets you on that list. And the list is what produces the opportunities that change everything. And you build the reputation in pieces, by keeping every small promise, by delivering on every commitment, even the small ones, by telling the truth in low-stakes situations so that you have credibility in the high-stakes ones, by not cutting corners you think nobody is watching because somebody is always watching even when you think they are not. And you protect the reputation by being careful with every interaction. You do not burn bridges. You do not speak badly about people behind their backs. You handle disagreements directly, privately, professionally. You leave every relationship, even the ones that did not work out, in a place where the other person would speak well of you if asked. And doing that for 30 years gives you an asset that no investment can produce, a name that opens doors, a reputation that does work for you even when you are not in the room. And so here is what you should carry with you from all of this. 10 quiet habits, none of them dramatic. None of them would make a good story. All of them have been running in the lives of quietly wealthy people for decades while everybody else was looking for the loud answer. Pay yourself first. Keep a running record of every dollar. Live below your visible means. Wait before you buy. Stop spending to impress people who do not care. Negotiate every recurring expense once a year. Invest steadily regardless of how you feel. Build relationships with people doing better than you. Learn one new income-relevant skill every year. Protect your reputation like it is your largest asset. And that is the whole list. Nothing in there requires you to be smarter than anybody. Nothing requires luck. Nothing requires a windfall. The only thing required is consistency over years, while most of the people around you are still hunting for the loud answer that almost never comes. And if you pick 3 of these to start, the 3 that resonated most when you heard them, and you install them slowly and deliberately into your life over the next 90 days, then come back in 3 months and pick 3 more. By the end of a year, you will be running half this list. By the end of 3 years, all of it. And by the end of 10 years, the financial position you are in will not look anything like the position you started from. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because every single day for 10 years, the small habits were quietly accumulating into something bigger than anybody around you could see. Because the small things done quietly every single day were doing their work the entire time. And this is how it actually happens. Not by the move that changes everything, but by the dozen small habits that run together over years and quietly compound into a financial life nobody else can figure out how to copy. They look at you and see luck. They see good timing. They see things they would never see if they had been watching the small daily actions for 10 years. But you will know what they do not. You will know that there was no luck. There was no break. There was only the quiet habits run with discipline while the rest of the world was still looking for the loud answer that was never coming, because the quiet ones were always the way, and they still are.